sometimes that is better.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the KillJoy Jake podcast. Welcome to episode 2. I'm joined here with Jacob Browning, and we're going to talk a little bit about Ghoulies. How you doing, Jacob?
I'm great. How about yourself?
Fantastic, man. I'm excited to talk about this wild-ass franchise.
Same here. They're perfect. I think every single one except for the fourth one are perfect films.
You really like these movies, huh? That's awesome.
I think they are just the embodiment of pure fun and chaos.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm excited to get into them. They're crazy. Demons hanging out in the toilet and all that. Lots of weird stuff going on here. Is there anything in particular that you're just really magnetized to with these films?
I mean, honestly, I think it's each one has a very unique setting, and the puppet work and how the ghoulies work in each setting, I think, builds onto each of them. The mansion in the first one, the circus in the second one, and the college campus in 3.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. It's you get some characters that like definitely are spawned from the settings in all 3 movies, at least that I've seen. Ghoulies 4 is kind of untouched territory for me. Couldn't find it on Tubi this morning, unfortunately. But
yes, the only thing about the Ghoulies 4 is Pete Leopis, I believe his name is, from the first film, returns as the same character but totally different. And
okay.
It's set in New York, and he's a cop. That's all you.
So completely different.
It's completely different. The ghoulies aren't even puppets in that one.
Oh man. Oh, that's gonna be something. I'm really hyped to get into that. Let's talk about the original first, though. We'll get to 4.
Okay.
I just want to tease it for later. How do you feel about this original 1985 movie?
Well, honestly, the first one is in my ranking near the bottom. Sadly, I wish there was just more ghoulie chaos, and I believe that it's more the product of the tone. They were filming the thing to be a straight horror film, and then after the director saw the ghoulies, he said this needs to be a comedy. So through production, they just added these little silly scenes, which I love, but they definitely feel a little out of place. But
yeah, it's the tone is constantly struggling in this movie. Like, I can't tell if it's wanting to be Gremlins or if it's wanting to be like taken seriously or not. It's tough for me to say. So you're not crazy about the tone in this movie?
The tone is probably the biggest detriment of the first film, I would say. That and Pete Leopis, sadly.
Yeah. Yeah, performances are all over the place, I feel, too, sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah, except for Toad Boy. I love him.
We love Toad Boy around here.
Yes. Toad Boy is the star.
But you really like the puppets, is what you're telling
Yes,
me.
the puppets. I love the fish ghoulie, the cat ghoulie, rat ghoulie. I think there was flying ghoulie in the first one also. And clown ghoulie. Can't forget about the clown ghoulie.
Oh yeah. It's very fun. It's a wild ass movie. What are your thoughts on the plot of this first one?
The plot is definitely not the best for the first one. I was like, it kind of loses me in the middle act where it's just him renovating a house.
Yeah.
And getting the ghoulies, that part really lost me. But the beginning up to the party they had, I thought was really good. Setting up all the characters, setting up the ghoulies. They are literally the first thing you see in the movie.
Yeah.
Is the ghoulies, and it's a good setup, and I just wish the second act could have just built upon that a little bit more. And then the third act is just chaos, which I love. The third act saved the whole movie for me.
Okay, I feel you. What about the third act specifically are you like really vibing with?
I like it when the ghoulies, just seeing the ghoulies just be ghoulies.
That's the best part. That's the attraction to this franchise.
Exactly. That's why Ghoulies 2 and 3 are, I think, just so much better, because it's just them letting the ghoulies just do their thing, and just having all the fun. The clown ghoulie is probably my favorite ghoulie in the first film. It's so weird, creepy, has great practical effects with it too that I loved. That's the thing. I love all the practical effects in all the Ghoulies films.
And that's
You can go
something you
ahead.
don't get, like, you don't get that a lot nowadays. So seeing that in like these older movies, especially like the lower budget ones, I feel like is a little special because nowadays you watch like these like more like direct to video, direct to streaming, whatever movies, and you'll just get this like CGI mess and it just looks awful. You know, it's
Yes,
almost unwatchable. So at least there's like effort put into the effects here. I really appreciate about that about at least the films I've seen in the franchise.
yes, and I feel like this is it just emits Charles Band energy, which is a producer on this film.
You
It's
can tell.
Yes. And I mean, I'm also a fan of the Puppet Master franchise. So, and I feel like Ghoulies and Puppet Master kind of mirror each other, at least with the first films in both.
Yeah, you have that style of humor that's so specific to like Full Moon just in general, I think. Like even looking at something like the KillJoy franchise with the clown, you know, it's like it's all kind of has a shared style of humor. There's always boobs. There's always
Yeah.
like there's a certain style that Charles Band I mean brings to the table that's so specific and unique. It's interesting. I don't know. It's
Yes, I think he is I think a little too overhated as a filmmaker. I mean, especially when he was working with Empire, which is what Ghoulies is under. When he was doing Empire, you could see he had a lot of passion for everything, and you could feel that more. And then Full Moon tends to leave it. But in the Ghoulies franchise, especially, just it, he just knows, he understands that.
it's very like cartoonish, and I feel like the first, but like in a good way. Like I think the
Yes,
first
yeah.
Ghoulies, I agree with you that they don't really find that until like the third act. Like it's definitely trying to like we're trying to be a horror movie in this first one. It's almost like the first Child's Play versus like Bride of Chucky. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like it's definitely like like this is scary, but like it's a little silly. You know what I mean? They lean into that in the sequels. The Ghoulies franchise is
Yes.
no different.
Yes, and to add on about that, like as the series goes on, it just becomes more and more of a cartoon. By the time you get to Ghoulies 3, everything in it is that movie is literally a live action cartoon.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, like, I guess one more question about Ghoulies 1. What do you think is the biggest detriment to this film? Like, obviously, it doesn't lean into the concept as much as you would like into the silliness. Is there any specific one thing where you're just like, this kind of ruined the movie for me?
I would have to say, I mean, it has to really be the Pete Leopold's acting throughout because he's the main focus of the movie. And at the beginning, you're like, okay, he's a 40-year-old college student doing his thing,
Yeah.
and then he's now renovating a house and
Like,
then becoming
what's
a dark
happening here?
sorcerer, and it's just like his character is just all over the place. He's not really that likable. He's like just the green eyes. Also, that's the one thing I was like, this I don't really, but I mean, you have that, but then you also have an amazing score and great puppet work and great practical effects all around the board. And so it kind of just balanced out to where I think the first Ghoulies is just a fine film.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that. It has an 8% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is just kind of funny to me.
Yeah, that is, especially when you think Ghoulies 4 has a 35.
Yeah, I was looking at them earlier. I'm like, I can't believe some of these are like way higher rated than the original. Like it's just astronomically higher than the Rotten Tomatoes score for the original. It's fascinating to me. I don't know. I do agree. I don't think they get the tone 100% right. Ghoulies 2 is definitely where you start to pick up on the cartoonishness of it and just lean into the fun of hanging out with these ridiculous villains. How do you feel about, well, before we talk about Ghoulies 2, out of 10, what do you think you would give the original Ghoulies?
I would give, mostly just because I love the franchise, and I think just the puppet work alone deserves a 6 out of 10.
Okay,
That's what
okay.
I gave it.
Hell yeah, man. That's very generous of you.
Yes, I think I am a lot more generous with these types of movies than most people are.
That's okay.
But it's the type of movie I can just turn on, and I know it's not great. By the numbers, it's not a great movie, but it's something I could just sit down and just have so much fun watching, enjoy myself, and just laugh. And that's what I think. If I want to make a horror movie, that's what I want to do. Is just make something that'll make people just have laugh, have fun, enjoy themselves while watching it.
And see, you love this though. Like that's my thing. Like own that, dude. Like own that shit. Like I hate when people say I have like my guilty pleasure movie is Piranha 3D. I don't give a shit. I love that fucking movie.
I love the Piranha films as well.
Like they're ridiculous, they're fun, they're campy. I love that. It's not for everybody, but that's okay. It's for me. I dig it. And I think it's fun. It's bloody, crazy fish movie,
Exactly. I completely understand you. And my favorite horror film is just along the same lines of that. It's Slumber Party Massacre 2.
Oh, dude, fuck yeah, man. The first two of those movies are so good. I love them to pieces.
The fourth one's really good too.
Ooh, I have not seen the fourth. I thought there was only 3.
The fourth one is kind of like a remake / requel.
Oh, wait, the sci-fi one that came out like maybe like 2 years ago?
It has a 100. Really, yeah, as I say, it has like almost a 100 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's phenomenal.
I completely forgot about that movie, dude. I saw that like live on Sci-Fi, like when they premiered it.
Same here. I was so excited for it.
It was really good. Like I was like, wow, this is way better than I thought it would be. Wow. So hate to segue there, but man, that was that's so cool, man. I got to revisit that one. I did a review on that back in like 2021 and I like completely forgot about it. Completely slipped my brain.
The whole franchise. I even enjoy 3. I know it's
3's it's the weakest, but it's got some cool moments.
I do agree it's the weakest, but the third act saved me, just like Ghoulies.
Hell yeah, man. Very good stuff. Well, moving into Ghoulies 2, this is, we're at a circus this time, different setting, and the Ghoulies definitely get to come out and play a lot more, way more screen time. What are your thoughts on this one?
I absolutely love this movie. Ghoulies 2 is the best Ghoulies film out of the whole franchise.
Hell yeah.
I usually go back and forth between Ghoulies 2 and Ghoulies 3, but Ghoulies 2 I think is just a better made movie. I feel like all the performances are really good. The grandfather is actually from, I think, the original Body Snatchers film.
Oh, okay.
He's the main lead, and he is amazing as it. And I loved all the characters. I think are great. All the side characters. I think also in Ghoulies 2 had an actor from Dazed and Confused.
Okay.
So I was like, it has a lot more actors I'm familiar with, and the puppet work is 10 times better. You get to see the Ghoulies. It's funny. You get some like emotional moments too. Like I actually, during the scene with the grandfather where he's in a drunken haze, I was like, I started feeling for him, like feeling bad, and.
The other thing about Ghoulies 2 is like the plot line I just feel like is a little easier to follow than the original, where you're just constantly in that first one, you're just throwing shit at the wall, seeing if it sticks is how I feel about the plot.
I completely agree. I feel like they didn't have to summon the Ghoulies. The Ghoulies were already there. And
don't waste time on that,
Exactly.
It doesn't. We're here for Ghoulies. We're here for puppets. Just get them
exactly. And it took a whole hard left from the whole sorcerers and everything, which I thought was a great choice. And I just thought that the plot was great. It was enjoyable. The circus. I need more horror movies set in a circus.
There's not enough of those.
It just seems like it would be fun. It could be used to be creepy, like the House of Mirror. The only ones I can really think of are It and maybe Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
There's this Dean. I can't think of it off. I want to say it's called like the Dark Half is not right because that's a Stephen King thing. But there's this like Dean Koontz movie. If you know who Dean Koontz is, I would be surprised.
I'll say I'm not familiar, but I'll have to.
He's basically like he's an author who's basically like Stephen King's biggest competitor in a lot of ways. I think Stephen King is vastly superior. Hot take. I'm sorry, Dean, if you're watching this, but Dean Koontz has a lot of really good stories. Unfortunately, he just really has no super amazing movie adaptations of his work. The only one though is this Jeff Goldblum starring movie, which off the top of my head I just can't remember it. But the ending of it takes place at a circus and it's badass. And if I think of it, Jacob, I'm gonna tell you about it.
Okay, I can't wait. Sounds great. You already sold me with here Stephen King competitor and Jeff Goldblum.
There you go. there you go, man. But getting back to Ghoulies 2, with the plot line, it's mostly about our characters who are afraid of losing the circus. It's just a little more in depth. Like, what do you think about the overall character structure, where the storyline goes?
I feel
Hit
like
me with something about that.
like when you start the movie, you get introduced to our two main character, or our main character and his grandfather, and you already get that he's helping out with the circus, and it puts you into the conflict. Ghoulies are coming to the circus, which I loved. It was an easy, straightforward way to get the ghoulies to the circus, and then you go there and find out the circus is getting closed down by this rich asshole. I'm trying to think of his name. I can't remember off my head, but he I like his character too, and you kind of like at some point you don't really know if you're supposed to be rooting for him or not. They really played it to where he's not completely like until the third act. You kind of like, should I be like agreeing with this guy? Should I be like, yeah, he's being a little rude, but he's doing it. He's also being nice to some of the other people here at the circus. It's kind of like you're trying to figure out what his whole thing is throughout the film. And then you had of course, the bullies in the horror films that I was glad they weren't just there for one scene and gone. I like to have a recurring bully in a horror film. Yeah, I mean Butch or the one from It is the one, Henry.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's a great example for sure.
And so I love that so much in the film, and I just thought like they grabbed you with all these characters, they put you into the action, and you could see where they all were coming from, and then they fit perfectly with the ghoulie chaos.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, I feel like this is the first, like this to me feels like the first real Ghoulies movie. You know what I mean? Like you get that. Yeah, like you have the fun vibe the whole time. That's like over the top. It's basically live action cartoons in a lot of ways.
It's much
with
akin
a dark
to
edge.
Critters 2.
Yeah,
Critters 2, where
I
it
feel
became
that.
a full blown cartoon. Like I mean, in Critters 2, you had the critter ball turning someone into a skeleton.
Yeah,
And I was like, I could see this in Ghoulies. Both those two are like the puppet work and everything in those two franchises really what like helped build the cartoony look too. But the only thing I have a problem with Ghoulies 2 is I need my Ghoulies to talk.
yeah, that's something that was odd watching. I watched Ghoulies 3 this morning, and I'm like, wow, they're talking a lot more than the last one I watched. That's crazy. So, like, what do you think? What was the thought process behind that? Like, why do you think they don't talk in this one?
I just think they wanted it to be kind of, I guess, not too much like either Critters or Gremlins, which all three were at production at the first Ghoulies, Critters, and Gremlins all at the same time were in production.
Right. All
So-
competitors in a lot of ways. They wanted to stand
Ye-
out.
Yes, so I feel like for the first few films, they were trying to do their own thing, trying to make it. I still think they're trying to keep the Ghoulies more into, even in Ghoulies 2, make them a little bit still scary a little bit. They kind of were trying to keep that horror comedy twist while still being fun and cartoony. And so I think that's why they didn't let them talk. And then I think by Ghoulies 3, they sold the rights and they're like, let's just have fun.
Yeah, even in the way they set up things in Ghoulies 2, it still feels like a commercial horror film, you know, where it's like,
Yes.
okay, someone goes, they're alone now, and then attack, you know. You don't really lose that in Ghoulies 3, but it's just different. Like the vibe overall, like, is just so much more goofier. Like you have the professor or whatever in Ghoulies 3, like read the comic books, and then
Ragnar.
they all just right, yeah.
Professor Ragnar is probably my favorite Ghoulies character in the whole
Yeah.
franchise, besides Toad Boy. Him and Toad Boy have to fight it out.
We need Ghoulies 5 where they're just beating the shit out of each other, honestly.
Exactly. Just put all the characters that just are so bizarre and need to be put in Stork, Matthew Lillard's character.
That was shocking about 3 as well. It's like, Matthew Lillard is here? What is going on? This is nuts.
Doesn't say a word either, but he's in the background of almost every shot in the movie.
He's
It's
there,
hil-
though.
Exactly. Has some great facial features, I will add. He made me laugh just by looking at him.
He always gives it his all, even if he's not speaking. You know, even in smaller roles, crappier movies or whatever, he's always given it 100%.
Did you even see what he wasn't even credited as Matthew Lillard in the movie?
Oh, really? No, I did not see that.
It was Matthew Lynn.
Matthew Lynn? What? Is this
Yeah.
like a stage name or something, or did they just fuck up?
I believe this was his stage name at the time because this
Oh,
was
okay.
this is his first ever role ever.
Yeah, early
It's-
90s. He doesn't really blow up until mid 90s, more or
yeah,
less, and then of course Scream comes out and it's all
and
over.
exactly. But I believe that I kind of wish that Ghoulies 2 had more of the Ghoulies 3 fun into it, but I still think Ghoulies 2 is I mean, even the cinematography,
It's an upgrade from the
it's
from
an
the
upgrade.
original.
Like I'm watching it, I was kind of like I can't really complain that this looks good, like bad. Like this is like the best thing of the whole franchise. I think Ghoulies 3 doesn't even have that type of cinematography at all.
Yeah, like Ghoulies 3, it almost feels like a step down from like the technical level, but they understand, like, it's the only movie where I'm like, okay, they got the tone. Like, this is, yes, just lean into it. This is ridiculous, accept that. The Ghoulies 3 really gets that, in my opinion.
Yes, but I still think that Ghoulies 2 is just a little bit better.
Heck yeah, okay. Hell yeah, man. You
Yeah.
like the mix, like the horror, and like it's a little less horror, a little more goofy. They find the balance a little better, essentially.
Exactly. I mean, just like all types of films like that. Like I mentioned, Critters, Slumber Party Massacre. I even like Dude Bro Party Massacre.
That one's
Three.
really ridiculous.
Like when you I love a good serious horror film, but every once in a while you just need something so goofy just to kind of clean your palate and just have a good time, have some friends over, watch like putting on Ghoulies. That's my favorite. Ghoulies is my favorite movie to put on when I have guests over.
Hell yeah, man. I really dig that. I think I might have enjoyed I watched Ghoulies 3 by myself this morning. So like I think if I have like, the boys over and then just like put it on, watch it, I'm going to have a better time with it. Like it's kind of like like Willy's Wonderland is I think a great example. Like
Exactly, yeah.
I watched that like when it came out to do a review and I'm like, this is awful. Like I just did not care for it at all. Watched it again with a bunch of buddies. I'm like, okay, this is really fun. Like, I'm like, I was way too harsh on it. I think it's the setting and tone, unfortunately, really affects like just in the environment you're in when you're watching a movie. That really affects me, unfortunately.
That I'm the same way with some certain movies, but especially like these horror comedies. Like I don't think I would have enjoyed Slumber Party Massacre 2 if I didn't have like 5 people in the room with me laughing along.
But it's really fun. You have this killer who's running around making quips, having a great time killing people. It's ridiculous, but it's
exactly.
great.
That's why I think Scream and Chucky are two of my favorite like mainstream horror franchises. They know that tone. They keep that silly tone to it still while being serious.
Right. I definitely feel like Scream or like maybe like the first two Child's Plays you can like take very, very, very seriously. But
Yes.
even
I'm
then,
thinking
it's a
Scream
silly concept.
4 is very silly, and I love Scream 4.
And Scream 3 too.
And Scream 3 is also up there too. It's actually above 6 in my ranking.
Whoa, really like that one. Okay, very
Scream
nice.
6 is very close to the bottom with me.
You're not great.
sadly.
Oh shit. Well, hang on. We gotta pause the Ghoulies talk for a minute. Hang on. So how do you feel about Scream 6? Just hit me with this real quick.
I feel it just was too much akin to Scream 2, which when they tell me they're in a new setting, they're doing everything new. They don't have Nev Campbell in it. I want them to do something insane. I wanted like stakes. I felt like there weren't many stakes in this film. It was pretty much Scream 2 again. The twist I called.
Yeah.
I even before I sadly got this movie spoiled for me with the leaks.
Oh
But,
shit, man.
I it just kind of I already guessed the killer, so it didn't really surprise me.
Yeah.
Like
Dude, I had Dermot Mulroney pinned from the beginning. I'm like, this guy's acting way too weird.
and well, do you know the flannel theory also?
Yes, yeah. Ethan is wearing a flannel at one point. A
Eh,
lot of our killers have been wearing flannels at some point in the past.
It's the blue flannel if you see him wearing it. There. And then Quinn, I was like there's a third killer. They're going to probably do something like they did with Roman.
Yeah, they did the fake out exactly, almost exactly the same. Yeah, it's just like what I
So-
didn't. While I didn't love the killers, though, I think the movie tries to do something special with like a lot of the ways they set up their kills. The opening scene is something that
I
don't
love
think.
the opening scene. I will say the opening scene is beautiful, and I thought I love the characters. But I kind of wish like Mindy died at least.
Not crazy about Mindy.
She's a little too on the nose for me now, especially after Scream 6. I was like,
Yeah, I mean, she has like she tries to be Randy so bad, I think at times, and I kind of wish they just fleshed her out as her own character. You know, like it's like we get it, you guys love Randy, let's do something else with
exactly.
this. You know?
I think like they did that with Chad. He still has the horror knowledge that Randy had, but he's also his own character. I love Chad's character. He's probably my favorite new character of the franchise.
Hell yeah,
But
man.
I would say my ranking for Scream probably goes 1, 4, 5, 3, 6, 2.
Okay. Hey, listen, man. As long as we can agree that 2's like close to the bottom, we're chill.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the reveal in Scream 2. The only thing I think Scream 2 really has that's going for it is the music and the chase scenes.
I'll give you that. Absolutely, man. Definitely some of the best from the franchise. But like that's another one, just like 6, where I'm like high highs, low lows. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I totally agree with you there. But back
to
the
Ghoulies.
Back to Ghoulies, man. Listen,
Yeah.
you get me talking about Scream, I'll just go on about that for an hour. But
I understand. Yeah.
but Ghoulies, moving into, well, actually, before we talk about Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies 2, out of 10, what do you think you give this film?
I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10.
Hell
I
yeah.
think everything about this film just elevated what the first Ghoulies did. I like the designs in Ghoulies 2 of the Ghoulies a lot more. The characters are all great. They made me laugh. They made me feel for them. The score is still great. I think the score in all the Ghoulies film, and I'll even give Ghoulies 4 that. It has a good score. But that's one thing the franchise has going for it is, and I think Ghoulies 2 just takes everything that's what's Ghoulies and just shows us it right there. And you don't really need to watch, I think, any of them if you watch Ghoulies 2.
Okay. I feel you on that, man. That's nice. Very nice. Very nice. But now we're going to college with Ghoulies 3.
Yes, my Ghoulies are all grown up now.
So how do you, what's your take on Ghoulies 3? You're digging, you really like this one. We talked a little bit on other live streams about this.
I love Ghoulies 3. It's definitely not as good as Ghoulies 2. It's has, like you said, worse like the technical level, it's not as good. But the one thing it does have is just the greatest, silliest characters. The Ghoulies can talk. I never thought I would need to hear in my life a Ghoulie yelling panty raid. Like,
Yeah.
that scene just made
Charles
me
Band, dude.
And the thing is, this isn't even Charles Band. He sold the rights for this film.
Okay, that's interesting because I
So-
feel like I almost feel like they turned up the band knob even more with this one.
You would think it is, but it's Vestron Pictures is the one that made Ghoulies 3 and 4, and Charles Band had to sell the Ghoulies franchise to try to save Empire Pictures before it went bankrupt.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So Ghoulies 3 and 4 are made by a different production company, and you can definitely tell the quality is a lot lower than the first two with these.
Even with that being said, I think the tone of Ghoulies 3 is like I think that they captured the tone and the fun aspect maybe the best in this one. I'm not as crazy about the Ghoulies humor maybe as you are, but I feel like for what they're going for, this one captures that vibe maybe the best in my opinion. But what do you think about like the even funnier tone versus the last two films?
The funnier tone just kind of helps it because even if it's bad jokes, because I'll have to admit, I'm not a big fan of all the lines in the movie either that the Ghoulies say. But sometimes they're just so bad that I'm laughing. Like the line about, is that a clown, or is that a crown in your lap, or are you just happy to see us? Line like
What?
like it just made me like I was like this is stupid, but I was like laughing at the same time as I'm saying that. Like
You have one of the Ghoulies saying at one point, "Let's blow this poop stand," which is like that doesn't make any sense. It's let's blow this pop stand, but we're replacing it with poop, and it's just like that I feel like is the epitome of this style of humor in a lot of ways. It doesn't work for everyone. I'll be honest, it doesn't really work for me, but it's interesting and it fascinates me.
and the idea that Ghoulies are now spawned from a comic book just helped make it great. And then you have a Gargamel look-alike running around, summoning the Ghoulies, having them to destroy the frats. Like, the weirdest motivation ever.
Yeah, it's odd. There's like, besides the humor, a lot of the plot stuff is very strange in this movie. Like you have characters who their whole thing is like we do pranks, like we're pranksters.
The most intense pranks I have ever seen, too. I was like, I would be suspended from college, like expelled, if I was doing anything like this. This is minor vandalism, pretty much.
They fuck around with a cop like early on in this movie during a party.
That cop goes through so much
He goes
throughout
through
this
so
film.
much.
Him and Bonnie.
Yes, absolutely. You feel bad for some. It's hard for me to root for the main characters because of how poorly they treat some of the other side characters in this one.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I do. Skip does get me to come around to him by the end of the movie. I do like the character of Skip and Ragnar. I'll root for him any day, even if he's the villain.
Fair enough, man.
Ragnar is just great.
He reminds me a lot of like the principal from Ferris Bueller. Like, you know, like just it's the same style of character. We're just shitting on this professor style character the whole time, you know?
Yeah, and just seeing him just slowly become more and more unhinged as the movie goes on is just great. It's like when I saw him writing evil and power, I was laughing. Like I don't know if that was even supposed to be funny, but just seeing him just walk up to his class and just write those two words on a chalkboard just made me lose my mind just because of how like bizarre this is, that this is a college professor
Like doing all of this ridiculous shit. You can see the steam coming out of his ears. He's so angry.
Yeah, it's and just I think this whole faculty is just the most inept people. Even the cop, the most inept people I have ever seen. I don't think I ever saw a lesson getting taught.
Yeah, what's up with that?
The cop couldn't do anything except be a little creepy near the middle, which I'm not a fan of.
There's a lot of creepy moments in this movie that I'm not crazy
Especially
about.
the Pandora, with Ragnar and the Pandora's box scene.
Yeah. What's up with that? Like, when you told me that Charles Band had nothing to do with this, that was a genuinely a shock. Like this feels like Charles Band wrote and directed it in a lot of ways.
This feels like a much more like the Charles Band we all know and love.
Yeah. I mean, there's a running gag throughout this movie where Skip is constantly like trying to help naked women with different things, and then his like ex keeps walking in at the same time, and he has his hands on like these girls' boobs and shit. It's like, what's like what is what is this?
And it makes no sense how he gets himself like he puts himself in these situations so much that he kind of gets what's coming to him when she gets upset. But like it feels like it's definitely a banned film.
Yes,
which I do praise because it does help with the transfer of Ghoulies 2 to 3. You still get that same tone, and I believe it just takes.
Oh, sorry, finish. My bad.
I was saying it takes it to an 11 that I think is just it. If they ended it with Ghoulies 3, I would have been happy.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that. What's really interesting to me is like Ghoulies 2 and 3 feel so akin to each other, where the first one feels like it's just trying to figure out what we're doing here. We're trying to make a puppet movie. Like, what do you think was the thought process behind that moving into Ghoulies 3 with like new people in charge behind the camera?
I feel like they saw that probably Ghoulies 2 I think it was more successful than the first Ghoulies movie. I believe that they saw the quality, they saw that people actually enjoyed this one a lot more, and they just were like, just stick with what we're good with and just do it.
Right.
And I think that was perfect because I didn't even realize until I was doing more research on it that it was a different company. The only film that I will say looks like different is, like I said, keep going back to Ghoulies 4.
Well, fuck.
Ghoulies 4 is just like should not have been made at all.
Well, what's your ranking for Ghoulies 3? Then let's talk about Ghoulies 4 a little bit.
Okay, so Ghoulies 3, I'll give it probably a 7 out of 10. I think it's not as, like I said, the technical stuff kind of makes me lose it. The jokes aren't always the best in Ghoulies 3, as I think they were in Ghoulies 2. And but they had so many things that I love that I just think is so much fun to go back to. Because I much rather put on Ghoulies 3 nowadays than Ghoulies 2 and 1.
Okay,
Because
okay. Oh.
Ghoulies 3 is the one I want to show people. I don't really want to show people Ghoulies 1. And I will show people Ghoulies 2, but I think Ghoulies 3 is the way. Just this is what the most insane film in the series is. Everything else is similar but different.
I agree with you there. I think Ghoulies 3 captures the tone the best, where maybe Ghoulies 2 plot-wise just is a little better. I agree about the jokes too. Like there's things in all three of these movies where I'm just like, what? But like Ghoulies 3 especially is every joke is kind of like, why are you doing this? Like what the fuck in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But Ghoulies 4 then is a bit of a disaster. Tell me about this one.
Yes. So Ghoulies 4, they decide to bring back Jonathan Hargraves, which is Pete Levis's character from the first film, and now he is a charismatic cop. Like that, women just love him. Every time there's a woman on screen, they're giving him the puppy dog eyes. It just felt really weird. He doesn't really mention like the whole black magic past that he had doesn't come until about like 30 minutes into the movie, and you're like, this was like he was a whole sorcerer doing like all this stuff. Like, they don't mention his girlfriend from the first film. But the thing about the film that just really took you out was the Ghoulies. The Ghoulies were not puppets; they were two people in suits.
And there's only two of them too?
There's only two, and they're called Light Ghoulie and Dark Ghoulie. I'm not a fan of that.
Now, mind you, I have not. This is the only Ghoulies film I have not seen. That's coming off a little like we're stepping into some race territory, maybe here.
You definitely can see that they were trying, maybe doing something like that. The Ghoulies just it's a very untasteful film. Like it's pretty much just women in lingerie fighting, and Jonathan Hargraves just looking around trying to figure out what to do. And
From my oh, sorry, no, keep going.
And the Ghoulies aren't even part of the main plot. They're doing their whole own thing throughout the movie. And their humor isn't that good. They instead of giving like ghoulie voices, it's just two people regularly talking. And so you're just hearing these normal voices. And what they're doing, like they're trying to be like the normal ghoulie fun, but it just doesn't come off as well because they're not like these little creatures. They're like two people, like two humanoid people walking around. Like there's this one scene that I believe if they had it in Ghoulies 3, it would have probably made it 10. Like they could have done it good, but it's where the two light and dark ghoulie walk up and they go and they see these women standing in a line at their prostitutes and getting picked up, and they're like, well, here's how we get a free ride, let's just stand in line and wait till the car pulls up.
Oh my god.
And like I believe it was the regular Ghoulies, I would have enjoyed it more, but it just loses all the magic. Like if they're not going to have the good puppet work, why am I coming back to this franchise where the only thing I've been constantly praising about the franchise is the puppet work?
Yeah, and another thing that I want to point out, now I haven't seen 4, but it seems like this is trying to go back to the vibe of the original film, which just seems like a bad decision.
Yes, it definitely is. And then you find out that like Jonathan had an ex-girlfriend who they were really into doing black magic together, and like she fell in love. He now has a dark side of him that's from the Ghoulie realm, which is named Faust, but is just Jonathan, and she fell in love with Jonathan's like evil side, so she's trying to bring him back, and so that's where the whole plot comes in. Is she's trying to bring in the dark version of Jonathan?
Oh man!
And it just bad special effects, no good puppet work. The acting is all terrible except for one character. About 20 minutes in, he's in it for 2 minutes. He just had he comes into the screen, says Baba Booey, and then and I was like, this is all I needed.
Baba Booey, oh my god. I feel like we're watching a 2-man video. But going on with that, My biggest thing about Ghoulies 4 is just how do you think they go from the I guess success of Ghoulies 3, which is like a more of a sillier film, more akin to like what we're used to with this franchise. What do you think the decision making was there to try to recreate like the quote unquote magic from the original film?
I believe that they spent my thing is they probably spent most of their budget on Ghoulies 3. And
Yeah.
then by the time they got to Ghoulies 4, they just didn't have a budget because the quality, like the movie, I own it and it's grainy. Like
Ooh.
it's extremely grainy. The cuts are very bad in the editing room. They couldn't do puppet work, so that's why I believe they have two people in suits instead of the puppets.
Okay.
And I believe they tried to fix that by saying, well, maybe we don't have the budget, but we can get Pete Leopis to return. But they didn't understand the character. So
Yeah.
like I feel like if they understood the character a little bit more, maybe changed a few things around, this could be potentially a good Ghoulies film. Just everything they had to work with just didn't.
Now, is there something positive that you can say about this movie? I know there's a lot of bad,
I
a
will
lot of weird shit.
say there's a good dialogue exchange about 40 minutes into the movie that I
Ooh,
absolutely love with between the Jonathan's new girlfriend and his ex cop girlfriend, because he has many exes in this movie. There's the evil ex that's trying to kill everyone, and she runs around in black leather the whole movie. That's all she. Literally, the tagline for the movie was "A little black magic, a little black leather, and a lot of black humor."
Ah, man. You're not selling this movie to me, Jacob.
I'm trying to make sure you never have to see it.
Well, duly noted. But Ghoulies 4, anything else you have to say about it, though?
I would say Barbara Allen Lynn. She's in it, and if you like Chucky, she's in it. She's I think Lexi's mom in Chucky.
I believe so. I'm not as familiar
Because I
with
think
the
that
cast.
well, actually, I think she is because the daughter is I think I don't know Lexi's actress's name, but she's a Lind too, so that's
Oh,
her
okay.
daughter. So that's really cool seeing that mother and daughter acting together in
Absolutely.
Chucky. So, but she's in it, and I think it's one of her first few roles.
Okay.
So it's nice to see I would say is a horror actor I'm familiar with in there.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
But she's a cop, so I mean she has a lot to do.
you're reaching here. You're really trying to find something.
I watched it again last night, and I just couldn't get behind it. I wanted it to
Yeah.
be over from the moment it started.
Well, I sympathize with that. How do you feel about like on a scale from 1 to 10? How do you feel Ghoulies 4 ranks?
I'm probably gonna give it a 2.
A 2? Oh man. Okay, so this is just your least favorite one, regardless.
Yes, no, it's like the first 3 are so much better than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it just doesn't sound like it has the fun or the weird zaniness to it that the other movies had. That's really a shame.
Yeah,
honestly.
I really wish it had the cartoony, like especially like the cartoony sound effects. Like the one thing about Ghoulies 3 is there's like it sounds like a cartoon. You like all the sounds I could hear like watching a Looney Tunes episode. And in this one, it's really not that. They take it very realistic. All the actors, they are not really trying to make that many jokes either, which I think is to the detriment of them. It felt like it's much more akin to like the first one where the actors are being like they're in a serious thing and then the Ghoulies are just doing bizarre stuff.
And it just does it conflicts the tone so much, like just like in the first movie, I imagine.
Yes. Now I have a question for you.
Hit me with it.
Out of the 3 you've seen, do you have a favorite line, like of dialogue from the Ghoulies franchise? Because they have a lot of good ones. I quote them a lot. So
I really like the guy in 2 who's like, oh my god, the tunes, man. Like, I really like just everything that comes out of his mouth. I can't remember his name.
I
But
definitely do. I was quoting that movie for a while too with the tunes, especially when I was watching Ghoulies 3 and where the ghoulies attacking the radio, and I was like, the tunes.
it's like, come on, bring that back. That'd be great. I think my thing about the Ghoulies movies is the humor doesn't always land for me. Like, I feel like if maybe I was a little inebriated or, with some buddies or something, maybe I could see laughing at this, like laughing at it specifically, not with it, unfortunately, but not in a bad way. Like, I think that there's so many good, so bad they're good movies, and this absolutely falls under that category, Like, it's still totally worth a watch if you're in the mood for movies like that. So it's a tough thing to answer, it's hard for me to take these movies seriously, but that's not really the point. It's like these are silly, fun, ridiculous movies. Enjoy it for what it is.
Exactly, and that's why I definitely love a good serious horror movie, but I think every once in a while you need something like a Ghoulies just to help clean your plate and get you ready for the next few.
Exactly. I mean, everything can't be something like a Hereditary or, like a
Talk to
Pearl.
me.
Talk to me. Yeah, exactly. Like where it's like super complex, the characters are super well written. It really is scary. It's effective.
Yes.
In that way. But Ghoulies doesn't try, like, I think maybe 1, definitely 1. And then 4, I haven't seen it, but I'm assuming kind of the same vibe. They're trying to be serious movies, but it's like, that just doesn't work with this franchise. We have these little rubber puppets running around making quips and shit. That's what works. Just lean into that. Lean into the nonsensical fun that 2 and 3 do so well. 4 and 1 just don't do that very well, from what I've seen.
Yes, I completely agree. It seemed like I feel like 1 was a good testing the waters film and to help find the tone they were looking for. And so by the time you get to the second one, you already know the tone and you're ready for it. And that's why I think I enjoy the first one a little bit more, was I see how you could go from the first one to the second one.
From start to finish of the first one too, I feel like it figures itself out a little more, and that's why it's like kind of the perfect lead into 2 and 3.
Yes.
I totally agree with that. I feel you there. Now, is there anything else you just want to say about the overall Ghoulies franchise? Like, is there something you would specifically say to someone to recommend it to them or really get them on board the Ghoulies train?
I would say if you want to watch a fun franchise where it's pretty much a cartoon, you're going to laugh, have a few buddies over, this is the perfect franchise to go to it for. And I don't know why there isn't more. I want a modern day Ghoulies film. We got a modern day's Critter film. Why can't we get Ghoulies?
We need the Ghoulies requel, man.
Exactly. I'm saying, like, maybe bring back Toad Boy and Ragnar. That's
Jonathan Graves. Get him. Maybe not.
maybe
not on that
I would
last
say
one.
stay away from. I would say stay away from Jonathan.
we did that enough. Let's leave that in the past. Bring back Stu, not Stu, but Matthew
Stork.
Lillard. Bring back.
That's his name. When I realized that at the end of the movie that they gave him a name, I was laughing so hard because I was like, "Why? He couldn't be call it Frat Boy 2?
Frat
he's
Boy
Stork.
number 2.
He's Stork."
Stork. So, is there any other like full moon features or even Empire pictures that like you're a huge fan of that don't get talked about enough in your opinion?
I'm a big fan of the Puppet Master franchise, as I mentioned. I think the first, all the way up until the Axis trilogy, and I think the retro Puppet Master, or not Puppet Master Legacy, where it's just those ones you can skip, but get the first few. I think they're fun, silly, great puppet work on those too, and they're definitely more Charles Band. But I think the first film is really good. It surprised me how good it was. Another film I would recommend highly is Slaughter High.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've seen this one.
It's a Vestron picture, I believe, which is the one that made Ghoulies 3.
Gotcha,
It actually
gotcha.
came in my collection with my Ghoulies 3 film because I can't find Ghoulies 3 by itself. So I had to buy a collection
Gotcha. Okay.
with it, and it had Slaughter High, and I checked it out, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. It's a lot of fun. The killer is great, and it's much more of a slasher, which I'm more of a fan of.
slasher in a high school, I'm assuming, something like that.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
But
Interesting.
it's a little bit more zany too.
Very
So
nice.
and Chopping Mall.
Chopping
I
Mall's fantastic. Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Killer movie.
Yes, I love Chopping Mall. That's another recommendation. So,
Absolutely, man. Have you seen Demonic Toys?
I have, and I am not a big fan of demonic toys, honestly.
What? Oh man, that's probably my favorite. Like Demonic Toys just it cracks me up.
When I watched it, like I don't know, there's something about the editing, something like it just really got to me that I wasn't able to laugh as hard as I did in Ghoulies or Puppet Master.
I got
But
you. Okay.
I have seen it. I'm just not a fan of it, and I have not seen the sequels, sadly.
Yeah, you don't need to. The first one's the only one I really care about. It's just silly, goofy fun. The effects are nothing to write
That's
home about
fair.
either. But it's not as impressive as like the puppet work in like the Ghoulies movies. But it's like
Exactly.
it's interesting.
But I mean, I would say if people like the Ghoulies franchise, other franchises I mean, the Critters franchise. I love
Absolutely.
the Critters. Tremors, also, I feel fits along with those tonal. Like I think those three are like the three creature feature like tonal to keep the same tone. A lot of fun.
The late '80s, '90s feel to them. They all
Yeah.
kind of have a certain vibe. I think.
Exactly, and they all fall off near the end, I believe.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, those are all the recommendations I could say for if you like Ghoulies, and I would say if more people need to watch this franchise and just see it because most people don't even know this franchise exists.
Yeah, it's always great to shed light on something that's so more underground or that only a few people appreciate. It's always fun to like find these things and like see if there's something good here. That's something that's less
Exactly.
talked about.
And that's why when I heard you were doing this podcast, Ghoulies was one of the first things I wanted to talk about. I could have easily talked about the Evil Dead franchise just as much as I've talked about the Ghoulies franchise, but something about just I want more people, like everyone knows Evil Dead. I want more people I can talk with Ghoulies about.
Absolutely, man. I share the passion for trying to shed light on these like lesser known, less respected franchises just because like there is fun to be had with these movies. There's some creepy
Exactly.
moments, but there's some weird moments, but
Exactly. And
there's
they like
stuff to appreciate.
yes, exactly. And I love and like just like those early 80s like sequels. I love them. I think that's why Ghoulies 2 is my favorite just cuz they know like I think you could always skip the first film of an 80s film and go into the sequel. And it's going to be 10 times better. I think Sleepaway Camp 2 is better. Slumber Party
Oh.
Massacre 2 better. Like Sorority House Massacre 2. Like
Wow.
all those sequels, they like and Ghoulies 2 is in that like just as these bizarre sequels that just know how to have fun.
Yeah, and when you're touching on more bizarre movies like this, you get just way more experimental ideas, and I've always really appreciated that. Like I get inspired by movies like this. Maybe they're not
Exactly, yeah.
the best movies in the world, but like you'll catch on to something where you're like, oh wait, that was actually kind of interesting. I should write that down. I'm like, ooh.
Exactly, and like it's very inspiring. Like as a filmmaker to see that stuff, like I mean, it just makes me want like after watching the Ghoulies franchise, like I want to make a film with puppets.
Hell yeah,
Like,
dude.
I
Maybe
just
one
have-
day you will.
Yeah.
Very good stuff. Jacob, let me ask you something. Is there anything you want to promote on the podcast today?
Right now, I will say only my Letterboxd. It is Jacob Browning 56. The only thing I'm hoping to eventually get into YouTube and making more stuff like this where I could talk about horror. I'm just trying to figure out how to get into that. So
It's not easy, man, but yeah.
I could tell but it's something I think I want to do. So
Hell yeah,
I'm
dude.
exactly. I mean, you have been a great inspiration for me for that. Seeing you from watching, I started watching you last year, and I went through all your earlier films after watching them, and it helped inspire me a little bit more to be able to want to do this stuff. So I appreciate you for doing that.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. That really means a lot to me. So I appreciate that. So when you do start a channel, though, hopefully we can have you on the podcast again and promote it, because
Of
that would be
course.
great.
Yes, and I could tell you right up here, I have so many bizarre horror movies I could talk about.
Yeah, dude, listen, someone's got to put out content about the Ghoulies franchise. Someone's got to do it.
Exactly. I'm thinking like I should just have a separate channel just for Ghoulies.
There you go. I don't see too many channels focusing on like Charles Band movies or like Full Moon and all that either. So like that
Which
would
I
be
think
like
is
a
very
whole niche, you know?
Yeah, I think it needs to be talked about. Yes, he's not the greatest. His films tend to get, especially nowadays, I will not watch a new Full Moon picture. But
That's fair.
The early Full Moon and Empire days, I think have some really unique films. Maybe not the best, but they have some really good unique ideas that you don't really see.
In like modern or like just commercial streaming movies or whatever, yeah, you don't get like these weirder ideas anymore. A lot of stuff feels like very packaged and cookie cutter a certain way. It's like sometimes I want to see this. I want to see what some guy coked out of his mind made, like just randomly on a Saturday
And
night.
that's why I really like the Terrifier franchise, and the film Talk to Me, which we both have seen.
Yes, real quick, what'd you think about that?
Talk to Me, I loved it. I gave it a 9 out of 10. It is the first film since Hereditary to visibly get me, like, scared. Like, I remember, like, it was the same type of scene, too. That scene in Hereditary where she takes her head out and it gets hit by the... and then the scene, I'm not going to go into spoilers, but you know what I'm going to be talking about with Talk to Me. There was a scene in there very akin to that made me... scared. And I loved it. I thought it was silly, had some funny moments. Just everything about that film just really spoke to me. And I think it's great to hear that YouTubers made that. Raka.
And I don't know if you've seen their channel or not, but like they make videos where it's like, here's the title of a typical YouTube video, and you click on it and you're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, why is there a monster running around biting into people's necks?
Have you seen Five Nights at Sesame Street by them?
Hell yeah, you have, dude. It's ridiculous. It's fucking crazy. You have no idea what you're in for.
Insane, yeah.
The Ronald McDonald shit is so funny too. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. Their Pokemon stuff they did too. It's kind of terrifying too. Like you could see how they grew into making something like Talk to Me.
Which seems like such a simple paranormal like concept on the outside, but then you watch it and you're like, no, this is something so original. I've never seen another movie that has this same tone to it.
I thought the same thing about Hereditary. I was like, this is going to be a normal paranormal film, and I'm not really a big fan of paranormal horror. I think there's a few franchises. I love the Insidious franchise and The Conjuring, but that's really it. I'm not a big fan of The Exorcist. So
that hits me right here, man.
Yeah, it's just I think the sequels are all really bad, and the first film is just like it's all right, but I think it hasn't aged as well.
That's fair. It's definitely not the scariest horror movie ever, like how a lot of people claim. There's a lot of movies nowadays that I feel have topped it.
Exactly. So, but I think seeing both Hereditary and Talk to Me take these ideas of this paranormal stuff and then just taking it to a different area, and making it more emotional, more grabbing, like the stuff in there, like you can't take your eyes away from.
Oh yeah, the cinematography, the visuals, some of the shit they set up and Talk to Me is just like, no, you're not about to do that. The ending, dude. Like it's like, no, stop. I love that.
Yes. How did you learn about the Talk to Me? Was it from me when I messaged you about it?
Yeah.
I wanted to see if you knew about it before I did, because I felt like I saw you had your stream that night, and then I saw 10 minutes later after I texted you, sorry.
That was literally because of you. I was like, dude, I gotta see this movie early if I can. Yes, I'm so excited for this.
I tell you have to check out these Regal mystery movies. Every week they do it. Like every few weeks they do it, and it can be anything. Like
I looked into it. They're doing like a bunch more just in this year. I'm like, fuck, I gotta just take a chance. You never know.
Exactly. I saw Sisu through that, and Sisu is an insane film.
I still haven't seen that. That looks fantastic.
It is great. It's John Wick with the gore of Terrifier.
Oh, hell. Okay. Yeah, I'm fucking in, dude. That's fantastic.
Yes, I love it.
Well, great, Jacob. This is great stuff, man. Like, I feel it's great that you can, appreciate something like Ghoulies, but also talk to me. You know what I mean? I feel like there's not too many people out there that can see both
Yes.
sides of that.
Of course, yes. I'm glad that I'm able to talk about them all here. I really appreciate this opportunity you've given me with this. So,
Of course, man. Thank you for the support. I really appreciate it, man.
of course.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us for the KillJoy Jake podcast, as always. And also, as always, I'm just fucking up this outro real bad. Don't forget to kill it out there, y'all. Thanks again. Peace out.
Peace.